Hello viewers, thank you for watching our videos. Each time anyone visits, whether you're a subscriber or a new visitor, it means the world to us. So thank you. They say there's a house on the outskirts of Merriwick, tucked deep in the tangle of gnarled trees where the wind never seems to sleep. It stands crooked at the edge of the woods like a wounded sentinel, its roof sagging, its windows dark hollows that never blink. The people of Merriwick don't speak its name aloud anymore, but it lingers in memory like a stain. The Hawthorne House. The children dare each other to approach it, but never make it past the rusting iron gate. The adults cross themselves when they pass by on the road, and everyone knows the stories of the vanished family, the strange lights, and the whispering voices that ride wind at night. But stories are just stories until someone dares to believe them. Derek Moreland arrived in Merriwick under gray skies and tired eyes. A writer of middling fame, he had left behind the suffocating chaos of the city in search of silence. He found it, and then some. His rental was a modest log cabin nestled against the border of the forest, not far from the very house the townspeople avoided. He didn't know that at first. It took only a few days for the locals to give him the same warning in their subtle Merriwick way. Best not to stray too close to the old place, the shopkeeper muttered while bagging his coffee. What old place? Derek had asked. She only looked at him, then turned back to the register. You'll know it when you see it. He did. On his daily walks, the house always seemed to be waiting, weather-beaten and draped in ivy. Its windows stared down the snow-covered trail like dead eyes. The air felt colder there, still, watching. Derek tried to ignore it. He truly did. But the longer he stayed, the more the house seeped into his thoughts. It was like a hook in the back of his mind. Dreams came, fragments of the room he'd never seen. The sound of laughter twisting into screams. A voice that whispered his name, though no one was near. Curiosity, he told himself. Artistic inspiration. That was all. But deep down, Derek felt it. It was something else. The townsfolk were invasive, reluctant to speak of the Hawthornes. A family of four, Henry and Margaret. Their children, Evelyn and Thomas. Strange people, they said. Odd rituals. Unnatural quiet. Then one night, decades ago, they vanished. No trace, no bodies. Just a dinner table set for four, and a fireplace still smoldering. After that, the whispers began. On the coldest night of that bitter February, Derek approached the house. He didn't plan it. He simply found himself walking, lantern in hand, drawn toward it by something he couldn't name. The wind had died, and the forest held its breath as he stepped through the iron gate. It groaned open, the sound swallowed by the snow. The front door was ajar. The interior was like a tomb. Every surface was covered in a fine coat of dust, disturbed only by faint trails, as if someone or something had moved through recently. The air stank of rot and cold stone. Old portraits lined the walls, their eyes faded, their faces half erased by time. He stepped forward, and the whispers began, low at first, then building. They came not from the air, but from inside the walls, the floor. its very bones. Too late. Still here. The temperature dropped sharply, and his breath clouded like smoke. Then came the footsteps overhead. Derek looked up. The staircase protested under his weight as he ascended. The air grew heavier with each step, like wading through the water. The walls bore strange markings, not quite writing, scratches, symbols, spirals etched in with a claw or blade. At the end of the hall was a single black door. It was pristine, untouched by age. Behind it, silence. Derek reached for the handle. Inside was a children's room, toys scattered across the floor, a tiny bed made with crisp, dustless sheets. A single lamp glowed on the nightstand, though he saw no cord. And the rocking chair by the window, motion back and forth, back and forth. The chair creaked, slowly, methodically. Then, a voice, childlike, sweet. You shouldn't be here. Derek spun. There was no one until the shadows moved. At the corner of his eye, he saw a dark presence, a woman. She emerged from the corner, tall, gaunt, a figure swathed in black. Her skin was stretched too tight, her eyes twin voids of consuming darkness. Her mouth open, but the words didn't come from her lips. They erupted in Derek's mind. We never left. The walls bled shadow. The air turned to ice. The floor beneath him groaned, and fingers thin, cold, spectral, wrapped around his wrist. He yanked away and fled, tearing down the stairs, through the hall, past the door, and slammed shut behind him with an unnatural force. Outside, the storm raged, but the cold inside him was worse. He woke up in his cabin hours later, frostbitten and shaking. How he escaped, he could not recall. The house had released him, but it had not let him go. From that night on, he was never alone. The shadows in his home shifted when he looked away. His breath fogged even beside the fire, and the whispers, they never stopped. In dreams, he saw the Hawthorne family, trapped in a loop of endless agony. Their souls chained to the house by something ancient, malevolent, hungry. He tried to write again, but all that came out were the whispers on the page. Now the people of Merriwick speak again of the Hawthorne house, not in hushed tones, but with dread. For a light burns in the upstairs window. A man's silhouette can sometimes be seen behind the curtain, watching, listening, waiting. And when the wind howls just right, you can hear his voice join the others. We never left. The cabin Derek once stayed in stands empty now. At least that's what the rental agency claims. Yet, locals swear lights flicker on the inside after midnight. A hunter passing through the last spring said he saw a figure standing at the window, face pale, eyes sunken, watching the tree line. He left town the next day and never returned. Inside, the typewriter remains on the desk, a sheet still threaded through it. The ink is faded, but if you look close enough, you can make out the last words that Derek ever typed. It's not just the house. It's the land. 20 years passed. The story of Derek Moreland became another layer of a legend around Merriwick. Another tale for children to whisper and tourists to haunt. Then came Claire Beaumont, a university researcher in folklore and urban legends, drawn by whispers of the Hawthorne House and the vanished writer who preceded her. She didn't believe in ghosts, not truly, but the story was compelling enough for her thesis. Claire arrived in Merriwick in early autumn, and when the leaves bled red and gold, and the wind still carried hints of summer, the townspeople were colder than the air. "Best not go near the woods," the innkeeper warned as she checked in. "I'm not superstitious," Claire replied with a smile. The innkeeper did not smile back. "You will be." Claire retraced Derek's path. The cabin still stood, now boarded up, choked in vines. But the Hawthorne house was untouched, as if frozen in time. She documented everything: the gate, the sagging roof, the oddly preserved black door visible from the upstairs window. Then the dreams began. Night nightmares at first, just vivid. She saw a boy with hollow eyes playing with a wooden horse, a woman humming in a lullaby backwards, a house that breathed, and always the voice, "You came back." Claire didn't understand until she saw the photo. At the town's historical society, she discovered a faded black and white image labeled the Hawthorne House. The Hawthorne family, 1912. It showed four people, and one, standing just behind them, a fifth figure. His face was smudged, but the posture was unmistakable. Claire had seen him before, in her dreams. It was Derek. Long before the Hawthornes ever lived in the house, the land it sat on was known as the Hollow. In the 1700s, it was a site of Puritan settlement called Black Hollow, long since erased from maps, but not from memory. Black Hollow was founded by a splinter sect of zealots led by a man named Elijah Greaves, a preacher who claimed to hear the voice of God in the wind. But as the winter dragged on and the crops failed, his sermons grew darker. He said they were being tested, not by God, but by something older. He called it the Deep Listener. Elijah claimed it lived beneath the earth and whispered from the stones. He taught that it demanded quiet obedience. No one was allowed to speak after sundown. The penalty was binding, a ritual where the tongue was removed and the soul sealed in a book. This book, known as the Book of Silence, was said to contain not only the souls of the punished, but the language of the listener itself. Pages written in symbols that drove men mad, blood for ink, skin for parchment. When the settlement vanished during the winter of 1739, and all that was found come spring was a single house still standing, built atop of their meeting hall, the same house the Hawthornes would later claim. When the settlement vanished during the winter of 1739, the book was never found until Margaret Hawthorne. Margaret Hawthorne was not originally from Merriwick. She came from New Salem, and she was an antiquarian by trade, obsessed with occult artifacts when she and Henry moved into the Hawthorne house. She claimed to have found something buried beneath the basement, an old leather-bound volume wrapped in chains, its pages unreadable by candlelight. But she read it, and the whispers began. She taught her children how to listen, not to the wind, but to the quiet beneath it. She made them repeat the words that didn't exist in any language. Henry tried to burn the book once, but the fire wouldn't catch. Neighbors reported strange lights, chanting in the dark. One visitor swore she saw Margaret floating in the parlor, eyes rolled back, mouth moving soundlessly. The last diary entry from Margaret, never recovered by police, but found years later by Derek, read, "They are not dead. They are listening, and now, so am I." Claire couldn't shake the image of the photo, the smudged figure that resembled Derek. The deeper she dug, the more inconsistencies she found. Town records had no death certificate for him, no mention of his departure, just silence, like a page torn from history. Driven by unease and academic obsession, Claire returned to the Hawthorne house under a moonless sky. Armed with her recorder and journal, she entered through the same gate Derek once passed. The house groaned, as if recognizing her, but this time she brought a shovel. The basement was hidden behind a warped door beneath the stairs. The air grew colder as she descended, each step revealing a deeper darkness. At the base, the stone's floor was marked with the spirals and clawed etchings, and in the center, a square of loose earth. She dug. Hours passed. Then, then her shovel struck something hard. Wrapped in crumbling leather and bound in rusted chains, the Book of Silence pulsed faintly in her hands, warm like flesh. Against her better judgment, she opened it. The pages shifted as if alive. Symbols rearranged themselves. Her flashlight flickered, and then she heard it. Not aloud, but inside her. A voice deeper than thought, ancient, watching. Child of flesh, you hear. Claire stumbled back, the voice growing louder, threading into her mind like roots. She tried to flee, but the door at the top of the stairs slammed shut. The house began to whisper. Not just one voice, many. The Hawthorns, Derek, dozens, hundreds, layered over each other in a madding chorus, all whispering the same phrase. Join us. Read. Remember. The book snapped open on its own. Symbols twisted into names. Margaret, Henry, Evelyn, Thomas, Derek, and then Claire. She screamed, fought to close it, but the ink bled out, soaked into her skin, seared into her memory. And just before her mind fractured, she saw them, the Hawthorne family, standing just beyond the edge of sight, mouths open in silent screams. And Derek. He reached out. Burn it, he said. Break the silence. Claire awoke outside the house. No memory of how she escaped. The book clutched in her arms. She didn't return to the inn. She didn't return to the university. She drove into town, straight to the old churchyard chapel, abandoned and dry as tinder. She doused the book in kerosene. The whisper screamed. The air rippled as if the world were tearing. And then she struck the match. The Book of Silence reef. Flames danced in the colors no fire should have. Violet, black, sickly green. The voices shrieked in unison. Then silence. Real blessed silence. The fire died on its own. Claire collapsed in ashes, weeping. They say the Hawthorne house is gone now. One morning, it simply wasn't there. Only blackened earth and a cold breeze where it once stood. The land refuses to grow anything. Birds avoid it. The townspeople no longer whisper. They speak openly of the horrors that once lingered, relieved they may be finally over. Claire was never seen in Merriwick again, but somewhere, in a far-off city, a woman lectures of folklore with a haunted look in her eyes. Her students say she sometimes stares off in the mid-sentence, listening to something no one else can hear. And late at night, if you pass the burned patch where the house stood, and in the wind just right, you won't hear whispers. You hear nothing at all. Because now, the hollow sleeps, and no one listens.